Welcome to a new season of Beads, Baubles and Jewels. Hi, I'm your host, Katie Hacker. This season we'll see how to express your style your way. Just look around to find inspiration, then bring your own distinctive style to every piece you design. You can combine stones, beads, wires, tools, and materials to make your unique statement. First, I'm going to meet here with Samantha Skelton. Welcome, Samantha.
Hi.
Hi, I'm so happy you're here. And you do really cool things with art techniques and enameling. So this season we're talking all about how to make it your own. And so I thought it'd be great to start off with this piece that really is your statement. Your statement, your style. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. And today what we'll work on is actually using your own style and personality with enamel. And enameling is a process that involves fusing powdered glass onto the surface of metal. Today we'll be using copper. You can either use copper or fine silver in this fusing process. And what we'll be using are pre-purchased round copper discs. You can either cut something out yourself or use something like this, because really what you're using to style the piece is the pencil drawn. Okay. So we'll kind of walk through the whole process, starting with prepping the metal. So I'll start with this copper disc, and the beginning is kind of just cleaning it and getting the oil, grease, and dirt, and giving it a roughed up tooth. So I'm just going to use a like a rough scrubby pad and some water and soap. This gets all of the oil off of your piece and gives it that texture that allows the enamel to actually stick to the surface. Okay. So what I'm doing is in kind of a round spinning motion. I'm giving this a little bit of tooth. And you'll know that it's clean when it kind of gives it almost a frosted matte finish when you see it.
Okay, so you're really taking off any shiny parts that you see, and it's for adhesion, right? That's going to make the glass adhere right to the surface.
Exactly.
Very good.
So once I have it all clean, rinse it in my water.
So you could do the same technique with sterling, or you can use other metals as well.
You can only use a metal that's pure, so pure copper.
Not sterling.
Nope.
Oh, I'm glad you corrected me.
Yeah, basically you need something that is like a pure metal. So copper, fine silver also works really well.
Okay.
We'll be using opaque enamels, so enamels come in a lot of different colors. The opaque work well on copper because it's not translucent and you can't see the copper through. The transparent enamels work really well on the fine silver. So you can see this definitely has a matte, kind of a matte sheen, as opposed to kind of the purchased metal that has more of a glossy finish. So once I have my piece nice and matte, I'm ready to sift my enamel. First I'll use an adhesion blend of water and something that helps the enamel stick to the metal. And I'll actually just paint a thin coat of that on my metal prior to sifting.
Okay, and I just want to mention too that you can hear our kiln clicking, and so this is coming up to temperature. It's getting up to 1500, right?
Correct.
And the clicking is just helping it maintain.
Yep. So this glass enamel actually fuses.
Now here you want to put a mask on, right?
I do. So what I do is before you sift this, you want to have a mask on, and that's just to keep any particles from going into your lungs. So I'll put this on. Then I'll sift, and then I'll kind of talk a little bit more about the sifting process. So when I'm sifting, I'll have the mask on, and then I'll kind of talk a little bit about what I did after I take it off.
Okay, that's fine. So this is a process that you can do with a lot of different colors, and you had mentioned earlier, and I know you'll say this when you take off your mask, but you want to get about 3 layers as you're sifting it on there. And this is something that you can do right while you're holding it in your hand. And I think enameling is one of those techniques. I love getting inspired by folks who come on the show with things that I don't have a kiln at home, but I love the idea that I could go and take a class and learn further how to do this now that I've been inspired by learning a little bit about it. So it looks like you've got your 3 layers. All right. And then it's important to return all this material back to the container, right? And that's still while you're wearing the mask. I'm going to stand back while you do that. There we go. All right. I love the look of enameling because it is really that process of getting the glass surface onto the metal. It's permanent.
All right, now that I have my mask off,
now
thanks
you
for
can go
covering
back.
some of
Sure,
that
no
stuff for
problem.
me. So yeah, we are going for a smooth, even coat of about three grains deep is a good base coat on our piece. The nice thing about this is it's a thin, even coat, and it gives the enamel the ability to kind of smooth throughout the surface without being too thick it won't have any ridges in it when it comes back out.
So do you have to be careful about it getting lumpy?
You do, and if the metal can also warp, so we do want to do it in thin, even coats. You can always add enamel to the piece. It's harder to take the enamel back off. So
Okay.
you kind of want to think when you're sifting to keep things thinner. If you pull it out of the kiln and it's not thick enough, you can always add another layer at that point.
Okay, and it does kind of draw toward the center, right?
It does. So when I was sifting, you could see I was kind of spinning it around the surface of the enamel, and that was giving it a little bit more thickness to the outer edge, because that heat does kind of pull like liquid. The glass will pull into the middle, and keeping it as close to the edge will give you a more consistent coat.
Okay, great. So now we get to put it in the kiln.
We do. So it's really important when you are working with something that's this hot, 1500 degrees, that you're kind of aware of your surroundings, because whatever you put in and whatever you pull back out is going to be really, really warm. So here we have this nice ceramic kiln shelf that I'm using to set my rack and my trivet on. So what's holding my enamel piece is this steel trivet. And then this rack is actually what goes into the kiln.
Okay.
And inside the kiln, there's another shelf like this. So I'll actually set it inside the kiln and then pull it back out and set it on this, because it will burn your studio surfaces.
Okay, so make sure you're prepped for heat.
Yeah, we want to be really careful. Along with that, we'll want to wear gloves, just because the heat is actually going to come out of the kiln. So when I'll be using this fork to kind of steer and put my piece in the kiln, but I will want to have gloves on just in case, because it does get a little bit warm.
Okay.
My personal preference is to just wear one, because I think I like to have no glove on this hand.
More dexterity with the
Exactly,
opening the door.
because it is a little bit cumbersome when I'm actually moving it. So I also, before I put this in, I can say really quickly, you want to go as fast as possible, because when you open that door, a lot of heat comes out. And fusing, the glass does need to fuse at that 1500 degrees.
Okay, so it'll take a little time to come back up to temperature too.
Yep, yeah, so what I want to do is kind of be as quick and steady and even as possible. If when you are putting your piece in the kiln, if you bump it and the enamel sifts or shifts and moves, you pull it right back out, you can actually dust the enamel back off your piece and
start again.
re-sift.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you put it in, it'll actually fuse in the place that it's at. And you have a little bit of wiggle room, so if it just shifts a bit, it'll be okay, but we do kind of want it to have that thin, even coat, especially because we will be drawing on it later.
Yeah, that's a good tip, and I'm sure you learned the hard way. So.
I've learned many times the hard way.
Yeah.
All right, we will be going in. So I'll kind of line it up. Because there's not a lot of space, I do like to line it up first. Just like that. And did you see
You were fast.
I did tip it a little bit, but so now it actually dropped pretty low. It's down to 1275, but because it was already up at 1500 degrees, there is some kind of heat retention in there. So a little bit of the hot air came out, but not all of it.
Okay.
So it should, once it gets up to temperature, back up to 1500, it'll usually take about a minute for that enamel to completely fuse to the surface. Okay. So we can talk a little bit more about drawing techniques and kind of enamel in general
Yeah, we'll take a look after the magic happens.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so what do we do next?
So really small little indentations where the trivet hit the piece. So the first thing that we want to do once our piece is completely cooled is actually knock off those sharp edges.
Okay.
Because they are glass. You wouldn't want, and this is a wearable piece, you wouldn't want that to scratch your skin or snag your clothing. So I'll be using this alundum stick, and it's kind of like a hard sandpaper. So it's
sandpaper stick, basically.
Exactly. It's very gritty, and that'll actually kind of abrade your surface without, taking too much off.
Okay, so kind of a glass file.
Exactly.
All right.
So you can see this one, you can see it's just a little bit white, and that's actually just leftover alundum stick. Once I'm done,
clean that up.
Yep. Once I'm done with all three of these, I'll actually clean the rest of this alundum stick residue off in my water. All right. And you'll see the alundum stick actually kind of left a little bit of it kind of scratches the surface, so you do kind of get those small scratch marks. However, we will be fusing these pieces again, so you don't have to worry. Exactly, you don't have to worry about, you know, making a big scratch, because the glass refuses every time it goes into the kiln.
Okay.
It's really hard to mess up an enamel in that way.
How do we get it ready for drawing on it? Because you can't draw on it when it's this shiny, right?
Nope. So what we'll do is we'll actually clean off our residue from the alendum stick in the water and dry it off, and then we'll be ready to get it ready for our drawing prep, which is really fun. All right. So what we're using to ready the surface for drawing is we're actually using an etching cream, and this actually is meant for etching glass, and it will, because glass enamel is glass particles that are fused to the surface, it will etch our enamel.
Okay, and we're still waiting for this to come back up to temperature, right?
And then it's going
to be another minute or so?
Yeah,
okay.
It definitely doesn't have too much longer. I may actually peek in on it really quickly, just to make sure. Oh, you know what? It is ready.
Is it ready?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing that I did last time, and I almost forgot to put my glove back on.
I have you there. I was gonna
Thank you.
Remind you, yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna pull it out really quickly because I don't want to lose too much heat, because we'll use our kiln again when we fuse the drawing down.
Okay.
All right.
Look at that. That's amazing.
Yay, from powder to glass.
It's really cool.
Kind of magical the first time you pull out an enamel from the kiln.
It is really neat.
It is pretty warm, so we will want to. I'm gonna actually just scoot it up towards the front, and that way it can kind of cool off a little bit once you have. So right after it comes out of the kiln, the glass is actually still tacky, so we don't want to use our tweezers right away to pull it off. We do kind of want to let it cool for about 30 seconds. Tap it once, because like I said, the little trivet will kind of
stick to it a little bit.
Exactly. So we just tap it off, and then I always set it on a steel block, and the reason I do that is because the steel will actually pull the heat away, and it'll cool quicker.
So that'll let it cool really evenly too.
Exactly.
All right. In the meantime,
we are all ready to start drawing. So what I'm doing is prepping this for the drawing, and so you can see this one looks a little bit thicker than our one we pulled out of the kiln, because you do want to have a couple layers. So that was just my first.
Go back.
Yeah, exactly. So this one's all ready for our design. What I'm using is this etching paste, and I'm putting a thicker coat, and I'm using this etching paste. This is black enamel, and the black is nice because you can kind of see where you don't have enough, because you do want it to be completely covered, and that's the way it etches best. And I'm just using a Q-tip for this, because it's disposable. You don't want to ruin your nice brushes with an etching cream. So
you just want to get a nice thick layer.
Exactly. And the reason you want it to be thick is because if it starts to dry, it actually stops working. So the thicker it is, the longer it works. So I just don't really want to see any of my black enamel through it. And if you're using a white enamel or a light colored enamel, you just want to kind of take a look at it and see that you've got a coat on the whole thing. Especially if you hold it up to the light, you can really see that glossiness. So I'm going to get rid of this Q-tip because it does have that kind of etching acid on it, and it really only takes about 30 seconds for this acid to work.
And but you don't have to worry about holding it in your hand. It's okay to work without a glove and everything.
I don't use gloves when I work with it. I don't think that, as long as I would be careful if you do get it on your skin. I would flush it immediately. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a super messy liquid, so it's not something that's going to pour or run off of your piece. It does stick pretty well.
Okay.
So it's been about 30 seconds that I've had it on here. I'm going to bring it back over to my water bowl and give it a quick rinse and scrub. And I'm scrubbing this off because I do want to put this back in the kiln, and you don't want any of that leftover acid on your piece.
Okay. And then once it's dry, we'll be able to see it should be a little bit matte, right?
It definitely will be. So I'll dry it off. See, it has this nice matte finish. it kind of has a frosted look, and
Right.
you can see the back is a lot glossier.
Right, you can really tell.
The nice part about that, or the thing that you're looking for, it doesn't have to look perfect. The surface will actually refire and be glossy again when we're done drawing, but you're just looking for something that has a tooth. So this one is already matte as well, and what I'm going to be doing is drawing on this, and the thing that you need is just any pencil. And the fun part about this is you can use a thick pencil or a thinner pencil, depending on the amount of detail or what you want to draw.
All right, so you can think about it a little bit. You could do doodles. I like the way that you have these stripes on your other one. What are you going to draw on this guy?
You know what, I probably will do some more concentric circles. My work tends to be really abstract and kind of industrial based, so these are almost like lines or bridges. Steel architecture is really interesting to me. So I'm going to probably draw a couple more loops. And you know what, even if you wanted this to be, my work has a very organic feel. It has a little bit of a wabi-sabi, very loose lines, and very easy to kind of draw. You can also use ruler if you wanted it to be more exact, more precise. So this one I have finished drawn, and once you have it completely drawn, you can actually refuse this in the kiln. So the thing that the refusing will do is actually adhere the graphite to the enamel. It's a bonding process.
So on the one you drew on, you showed us white, and now this is just a different color.
Exactly.
So just want to make sure everybody gets the idea that you're using different color enamel. And the pencil gives it a really cool effect.
The cool thing about that too is the pencil will look different no matter what color you're using. So the lead will look different on white, tan. You can also use bright colors like a red or orange.
Okay, now we just have a couple of minutes. How long does this have to go in?
It only needs to fuse for about 30 seconds in the kiln. So what I'll do is the same process that I used while I was firing for the first time. I want to have my gloves on, and I'll put it back in the kiln. And then all you're waiting for is just to flash glossy. So I'm going to stick this back in just for a couple seconds. If you let it fuse too long, actually the drawing will sink into the enamel and it'll be completely gone. This one right here I left in a little bit long, and you can see.
Oh, so you can see part of the pencil disappeared.
Those lines are starting to go away.
So you just check it really closely.
Exactly. So I kind of, when I'm doing this in my studio, I'm really hovering because I don't want my drawing to go away.
Okay.
The thing to know about this too is if your drawing does go away, it's really easy to just step back, take a little break, let it cool down, put another layer of enamel on it, and redraw. So your piece is never really ruined.
Oh, great. Okay, so it's always reclaimable.
Exactly.
Should we see what we have?
Yes, we should.
Okay.
All right. So I'm just gonna kind of peek. What I'm looking for is that matte finish to be glossy. It's not quite ready yet, probably because I keep opening this door, but what I'm waiting for is that flash of gloss. And you can see in my finished sample has a really good balance of the lines are still dark and the enamel is glossy. This one that I kind of, my one I overfired, the lines are a little bit more pale. If I were to leave it in way too long, they would completely disappear.
Well, and it looks like you created a custom setting for yours too.
I did. So the way that these kind of become jewelry, you can, after you're finished drawing, designing, you can either use pre-purchased settings, or I actually make my own in sterling silver. So what you can do is drop these into a setting, hang it on a chain like I did to create a necklace or pendant. You could also make these into earrings because the copper you can
could tie it with leather. I could see adding some beads here. Should we check again?
Exactly, yeah, let's check again. I bet it's ready. It is.
Hey.
So did you see how it kind of has a sheen to it when I pulled it out? The graphite almost becomes metallic, which is nice.
Yeah, and it looks beautiful. It really becomes a part of the piece, and it's all fused together.
It is.
This is an amazing way to really incorporate your art into your jewelry. Thank you so much,
Thank you so much for having me and listening to my technique, my drawing.
Oh, it's amazing.
Enamel.
I love it. All right, and we'll have all the instructions on our website at Beads, Baubles, and Jewels.